Right.
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan.
So you said this guy is like Ben Shapiro?
I don't know if he's like Ben Shapiro. I don't know if they speak on the same things. I have no idea. But I know he has the same clout as Ben Shapiro. So I want to see what it's about. So you should follow this guy.
Yeah, he recently they're trying to take his I think the psychology board was trying to take his license to teach psychology or whatever. I think he teaches psychology. They're trying to take his license to teach psychology because some controversial things, like some controversial things that he's made.
That he
His
said.
daughter spoke out on it. Yeah.
I got a question.
That's crazy.
So is he conservative?
Probably. I said that was a good guess.
I think that's what
Let's look that up.
You think he's hard right or
you
hard
gotta tell
left, or he in the middle?
This is definitely my first time hearing him speak on,
I think he's a dope guy.
Jordan Peterson is a Canadian psychologist, author, and media commentator. He is a classic British liberal and a traditionalist.
Oh,
Is he a liberal?
He's from Canada.
But a classic liberal. I wonder if that makes you different than a classic liberal.
School or tradition. Classical liberalism, conservatism. So he's conservative.
okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Alrighty, man.
I thought liberals, so like, hold on.
They say he's a British liberal, so that's different than American liberal.
Okay.
I have no idea what that is.
Did y'all know the conservatives actually kind of freed us from slavery?
Yeah, they did. It wasn't the conservatives, but it was the Republican Party.
Republican Party.
Actually, I learned something today in class. Y'all know Jamestown had slaves.
Yeah, bro.
Where's Jamestown?
Jamestown.
Is
You
there
know what
Virginia?
Jamestown is, bro? The 13 colonies.
Oh.
They had black slaves, bro. I learned this in class today.
Yeah,
I didn't
bro.
think they had that, bro.
Yeah,
Bro, it's a colony, bro.
Virginia just killed
I
conservatives.
I thought probably when they made like the 13 states, but Jamestown itself, the first colony, went into like I guess a slave ship, and then they brought like African American slaves.
Yeah, bro.
to
Wait a minute.
Jamestown.
President
British
Jefferson.
liberalism is classic liberalism, and it advocates for limited government, economic freedom, political freedom, and freedom of speech. So I guess this is different than today's liberalism.
Well,
today is
What would y'all call
social
What would y'all
liberalism.
call Andrew Tate?
He's conservative.
I think he has conservative views, but I don't think he's like I don't think he agrees in government because he always speaks out against the government.
Yeah, he is against the government.
Like I think he has more because conservatives lean more towards traditional values and morals, and Andrew Tate kind of preaches that, but I don't think he's either.
Yeah, he's kind of he be
Not
going back and
listen
forth.
to his message.
Is he still blamed up with all that stuff?
Yeah, he's still in jail. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how he's tweeting right now.
I ain't gonna lie. The way Andrew Tate
He has a
talks,
team of people.
Yeah.
Andrew Tate talks on a different level.
He's very articulate.
Like
articulate.
if he had a YouTube channel, he would be up there.
I'm gonna be honest, this guy's gonna blow your mind.
All right, let's tap in.
All right, let's go ahead
Yeah,
and see what Jordan has to say, man.
his
This is my
diction
first time
is
hearing the guy. I know his Christian work. I've listened to like some of his Christian podcasts. He's an amazing guy with that.
How much responsibility do you feel you have, particularly guys the alt-right, who, as you say, some of them have enjoyed your work and say, I'm not one of you guys. I'm not with you guys.
They haven't enjoyed my work.
I've definitely read bits on the internet.
Read more.
Do you think a trans woman is a real woman?
I don't really like the way those questions are formulated. Now, I don't know what that means. What do you mean a real woman?
Well,
She
I'm
doesn't-
asking you, in your mind, it depends what you think a real woman is, but do you think a trans woman is a woman?
No,
Why not?
because I think that women are capable, generally speaking, of having babies, and they have female genitalia, and they have an XX chromosome, and I think the biological markers are relevant.
I'm interested in people being able to have different choices and having equality of outcome.
Aha, well, so the overwhelming proportion of people who are in prisons are male. Now, do you want to equalize that, just out of curiosity? What about bricklayers? They're 99% male. And we've got about 3/4 of the population now in universities in the humanities and social sciences are female.
Yeah.
Are we going to equalize that? And men work longer hours. They work more dangerous jobs. They're more likely to move. They're more likely to work outside. They're more likely to participate in jobs in the STEM fields that are scalable. They make more money for those reasons. And that's all hidden under the idea that the reason that men and women make different amounts of money is because of their gender. It's a very simplistic analysis.
Why are you against the use of alternate pronouns?
I'm against the use of legislation to determine what words that myself and other people are required to utter.
But would you use alternate pronouns if a student asked you to?
I think I've made my position on that clear already.
Well, perhaps not to our audience at home who are just being introduced to this. Would you use alternate pronouns? And why not?
Because I don't believe that other people have the right to determine what language I use, especially when it's backed by punitive legislation. And when the words that are being required are the constructions, they're artificial constructions of people I regard as radical ideologues whose viewpoint I do not share.
Using that word.
And so women got full legal rights, they could own property for themselves, they could work. Essentially, they were owned. They were first owned by their fathers and then by their husbands.
Status to the domination by men.
Yeah.
You already said that you thought that what emancipated women primarily in the 20th century was technological revolution.
No, not primarily, but that's one of two. I think that's two things.
Not primarily, eh?
No,
I don't think the pill was a primary force in the emancipation of women.
I think
or the invention of tampons, let's say, or the provision of proper sanitary facilities, toilets, and that sort of thing. You're thinking instead it was the action of courageous feminists in the 1920s that produced a social revolution that overthrew the patriarchy. That's your theory.
Yeah, I think
that's a foolish theory.
Let's say bigotry, said something like bigotry.
They walked up to this.
That's pure narcissism at work, by the way.
I really thought they did something.
You know, to hijack an event like this that other people put time and effort into, and to use their civility of the crowd and the civility of the organizers as an excuse to blatantly yell out your ill-informed opinions is no way to conduct a civil dialogue. It's absolutely appalling. The people who do that should be embarrassed.
My idea of the patriarchy is a system of male dominance of society.
Yeah, but that's not my sense of the patriarchy.
So what's yours?
Well, in what sense is our society male-dominated?
The fact that the vast majority of wealth is owned by men, the vast majority of capital is owned by men. Women do more unpaid labour.
A very tiny proportion of men, and a huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely? What you're doing is you're taking a tiny substrata of hyper-successful men and using that to represent the entire structure of Western society. There's nothing about that that's vaguely appropriate.
But I could say equally well that most rape victims are women. You know, terrible things happen to people of both sexes.
And you could say that with perfect utility, but that doesn't provide any evidence for the existence of a male-dominated patriarchy. I would say that anybody with more than a cursory knowledge of 20th century history who dares to claim simultaneously that they have compassion for the downtrodden and that they're Marxists are revealing either an ignorance of history that's so astounding.
What the hell? Where is this?
It's a type
Are
of
revealing either
Yeah, he was a Karl Marx.
Yeah, Karl Marx. He was a Russian.
Was he a communist?
Yes, he was a communist.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Let's Google what Marxism is.
Like every communication major studies Marxism.
Yeah, you do.
okay.
Marxism is the struggle between social classes, the bourgeois, the capitalists, or the proletariat. Oh yeah, bourgeoisie. Or workers define economic relations. Okay, that is a lot. I just want a simple. I should have said it was simple. It's a left-wing method of socioeconomic analysis that uses materialist interpretation of historical development. Okay, that's not answering my question either.
Yeah, they try to say left wings is more close to social communism. They try to say. Because they say what you call it is considered, what's his name?
I need the simple
Karl
definition
Marx
of
was
that.
German. Oh, I thought he was Russian. Okay, I knew he was something.
Do you know the definition of that?
Yes, he was communist. He was communist.
I don't.
It's just a political party that leads toward communism. So when you say like it's Marxism, like a type of communism,
Yeah,
as far as I understand.
I think they try to say Bernie Sanders was like that too.
They said Bernie Sanders was a socialist. I thought.
Yeah, he was extreme socialist. They said socialism was really close to communism.
Yeah, so it examines the flaws in capitalism and seeks to identify an alternative.
Okay, that
A
makes sense.
utopian socialism.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Look how
That they have compassion for the downtrodden and that they're Marxists are revealing either an ignorance of history that's so astounding that it's actually a form of miracle or a kind of malevolence that's so reprehensible that it's almost unspeakable. Because we already ran equity experiment over the course of the 20th century, and we already know what the Marxist doctrines have done for oppressed people all around the world, and the answer to that mostly was imprison them, enslave them, work them to death, or execute them, and as far as I can tell, that's not precisely commensurate with any message of compassion. Sorry, tried that, didn't work. We got 100 million corpses to prove it, and that's plenty for me, and if it's not enough for you, well then you should do some serious thinking either about your historical knowledge or about your moral character.
Question for Professor Peterson. Why do you feel that someone's personal gender identity and pronouns infringes your free speech? Can one not also argue, based on your interpretation, that professors can use racial slurs in their classroom and that the inability to do so would violate their freedom of speech?
There's a difference between saying that there's something you can't say and saying that there are things that you have to say. And I regard these made-up pronouns, all of them, as the neologisms of a radical PC.
This man here coming with them isms and all that.
Yeah, I gotta get my words up, man.
Neologism is like a coining of new words. So basically, it's like saying like you're doing a new
neologisms. Okay.
Oh, so black people do that.
Well, I'm gonna hit my teacher with that shit tomorrow.
Like cap and
some of all these neologisms.
Neologism, like cap and lie. I would say. I think
he made a great point. That was it. They tried to give him that question because that was a hard question to answer, but that was a great response.
Him and Ben Shapiro next to each other.
There's a difference between saying that there's something you can't say and saying that there are things that you have to say. And I regard these made-up pronouns, all of them, as the neologisms of radical PC authoritarians. Do you understand that? And I'm not a fan of that sort of person. And the reason I'm not a fan of that sort of person is because I've done my homework. I've read everything I can get my hands on in the development of authoritarian political systems, and I know the literature inside out and backwards. And I am not going to be a mouthpiece for language that I detest. And that's that. This whole patriarchy thing, I think you have no idea how pernicious and dangerous it is.
Well, no, I don't. I really don't.
Throughout history have fundamentally cooperated to push back against the absolute catastrophe of existence. A terrible death rate, the probability of chronic starvation, early death, disease, the difficulty of raising children, with all the death that was associated with that. And to look backwards in time and say, well, basically what happened was men took the upper hand and persecuted women in this tyrannical patriarchy. It's absolutely dreadful misreading of history. It's a terrible thing to teach young women, and it's a horrible thing to inflict upon men. When the Marxists say, well, that wasn't real Marxism, what it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good. It's like, well, think again, sunshine. You don't understand it. You don't understand it. And you're not that good. And if the power was in your hands.
Stalin was the Russian one. No, he's German. Okay.
Stalin for real?
Yeah, he's German. Soviet Union. That's Russian. Fuck, I'm stupid.
I'm going to be honest here.
Stalin was the Russian one. And Karl Marx was the German one.
Yeah, because Stalin was the dictator for Russia.
Yeah, okay, you're right.
I ain't gonna lie. Eminem had a crazy part. He said
he led the Soviet Union.
He said, sorry, nigga, I ain't trying to rush you, but you be stalling. I said, ugh.
Back to his point that he said on that last little clip about they shouldn't teach young women that men will always have the upper power and stuff like that. Yeah. That's what he said. Let me get that right.
Children, with all the death that was associated with that. And to look backwards in time and say, well, basically what happened was men took the upper hand and persecuted women in this tyrannical patriarchy. It's absolutely dreadful misreading of history. It's a terrible thing to teach young women, and it's a horrible thing to inflict upon men. When the Marxists
that's what I'm saying.
You can't say that because dudes was selling their daughters back in the Gap.
I mean, like, we were just talking about Jamestown. And you know how back when the food was getting low in Jamestown, they start eating each other, right? It was a guy. He ate his pregnant wife.
Why?
So,
where did you learn all this?
We learning this in class, bro. Literally.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, men's strength, if we weren't even talking about money, we would always have the upper hand on women.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that point is like, you know.
What?
All throughout history, men have always controlled women.
I think, I don't want to speak on it. What you call it?
What do you not speak on it, bro? I mean, that's men and women. We're not talking about, you know.
Okay, bro, it's a safe space.
It's a very safe space, bro.
That's not a safe space. That would be good.
Anyway, it's okay, but what do you feel like?
I don't know. I forgot.
Like, what do y'all think, though? Like, y'all think that, like, women...
I mean, I think,
I was told,
like
as humans, we're equal, especially in today's society. Especially, I feel like a woman has a lot more power now than
she can do anything when she wants.
This is definitely the best time for a woman ever in mankind.
Sure.
Guys definitely have.
I'd rather be a woman in 2022.
I would say there's a lot of male-dominated spaces, but that's just due to the way history is. Because women couldn't go to college.
Yeah.
They couldn't go to college.
What? Yeah, no.
For a while, they couldn't vote.
What?
For like.
Yeah, back in the day.
I know they couldn't vote, but college?
Yeah, bro, they couldn't have jobs, regular jobs.
Yeah.
So how they gonna go to college?
Can his
Women
point
could
be
not get jobs.
Can his point be kind of wrong on that one?
I mean, so what? So you're saying like?
I'm saying that male always has had a dominance.
But women used to be in the house, like they were supposed to take
because
care
of our dominance.
That was just, but like the women going to school was just out of our belief system at the time. Like, women were supposed to be the homemakers and like hold the home down and like, you know. So it was on the man to go to school and get the education, be the breadwinner, and provide for her. Like to take care of her. Yeah. That was like how we saw society, and like as those views started to change, women were afforded more rights to go to school and to work for herself. That way, like the unmarried woman, if she ain't have no husband, she can't provide for herself. She can't get a job. She can't get paid. And then the society was like, okay, that's fucked up. Like those unmarried women that don't got no bread. So they allowed them to go get jobs.
So men control the society, basically. Not in today's time, but throughout history before that time, men controlled society.
I think at that point, yes, but that was just how like life was. That's just how we
how can you look say that though?
Okay.
I agree with everything he said up to that because I mean.
So just fill me in on his stance is what exactly? That,
bro, look, one more time.
Let me hear that your word before you.
His stance to me is that he just told her that they should not teach younger women in history that women didn't have anything or like,
so men just took the upper hand and persecuted women like
it's the same thing they doing with the sleepers.
We're in power, y'all are persecuted.
He said they shouldn't be taught that.
Yeah.
Yes. But I mean, well, he low-key could be right. They shouldn't be taught that maybe, but I mean that's what happened.
That's the same thing with the slavery theory.
I think they shouldn't be taught that because like women weren't given those rights, but that's just because the things that they are allowed to do now was like a man's job. Like women can go out now and make all their own money, pay all their own bills. Like back in the day, women don't want to do that. Like that was the man's job. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just how society was. You supposed to be the breadwinner of your house. You supposed to pay the bills. And she supposed to cook, clean, and hold the house down. That was just what it was. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That was just how society was back then. Yeah. Like you protect, provide, and she cook and clean.
Yeah.
But now you as a man have to protect, provide, cook and clean for yourself, and she has to do the same thing for herself.
I guess it's always been like that though.
Yeah.
Back even in BC, it was like that. Low key. But let's just stance one more time, Ross, just so I can make sure.
Of raising children with all the death that was starvation, early death, disease, the difficulty of raising children with all the death that was associated with that, and to look backwards in time and say, well, basically what happened was men took the upper hand and persecuted women in this tyrannical patriarchy. It's absolutely dreadful misreading of history. It's a terrible thing to teach young women, and it's a horrible thing to inflict upon men.
When the Marxists say, well, that wasn't real Marxism, what it really means, and I've thought about this for a long time, it's the most arrogant possible statement anyone could ever make. It means if I would have been in Stalin's position, I would have ushered in the damn utopia instead of the genocidal massacres, because I understand the doctrine of Marxism and everything about me is good. It's like, well, think again, sunshine. You don't understand it. You don't understand it. And you're not that good. And if the power was in your hands, assuming you had the competence, which you don't, you wouldn't have done any better. And even if you had, there would have been someone else waiting right behind you to shoot you the first time you actually tried to do anything good. And that's what happened to all the old guard who ran the damn revolution. Stalin rounded them all up and shot them. along with their families and millions of other people. So even if you do happen to be that avatar of moral purity that you claim implicitly, the probability that you'd get to act out your goodness in relationship to those possessed by your ideology is zero.
Is being sensitive to offence such a problem though? Like, we would have previously called that manners.
It's a terrible problem. So imagine you, okay, so the rule is you can't offend anyone, all right? Let's say you're speaking to one person, I can't offend you. All right, fair enough. What if I'm speaking to 10 people? Do I get to offend 1 in 10? How about 1 in 100? How about 1 in 1,000? You're gonna come out on stage and you're gonna say something important about something vital, and you're not going to offend 1 person in 1,000? Well, you can't say anything about anything important ever without offending probably the person you're talking to. Important speech about important issues, especially contentious issues, is instantly offensive.
When we get the crybaby comments, just like you said, well, there's going to be a lot of people that watch this. Somebody's going to be offended out there what I said, so let me make sure.
All right, before they cook me, I did get Karl Marx and Joseph Stalin confused. I thought Karl was Russian and Joseph was German. I just flipped them. 5 minutes. Don't come for me.
They said our videos would be better if we would stop being
they said the woke has got us.
All right, let me hear it one more time.
We're afraid.
And that's that. This whole patriarchy thing, I think you have no idea how pernicious and dangerous it is.
Well, no, I don't. I really don't. Go on.
Throughout history have fundamentally cooperated to push back against the absolute catastrophe of existence. A terrible death rate, the probability of chronic starvation, early death, disease, the difficulty of raising children with all the death that was associated with that, and to look backwards in time and say, well, basically what happened was men took the upper hand and persecuted women in this tyrannical patriarchies. It's absolutely dreadful misreading of history. It's a terrible thing to teach young women, and it's a horrible thing to inflict upon men. When the Marxists say,
when you look back on society, men just were expected to go fight in the wars. Women supposed to be at the crib holding it down. Women weren't supposed to go fight in the wars.
The feminist movement says they're supposed to.
See, and they can say that, but at the time, they wasn't. Yeah. When did women get allowed to the army?
I don't even know.
That's like last like 50 years.
It had to be in the 1900s, because the Great Depression, when all the men went off and they stayed at home.
It's probably it was probably right before. I'll probably say it was World War II, because the women had to help with the grenades, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I know my history. I don't know why I'm good at history. That was one thing.
Snap! Well, hey, hold on. I ain't gonna lie. The camera's finna die. So what you finna say?
That was in 1948. So that's less than 100 years.
Well, guys, let's know what y'all think in y'all comments on this video. George's a great guy, though. I love him, man. I would never get offended by what anybody says on him.
I think he's very intellectual.
Y'all need to stop getting offended. That's snowflake activity.
That is the problem with our community now, with our society now. We are too sensitive, and I think everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and we need to accept that, whether right or wrong. We are not to get offended.
Yes, guys. Doesn't matter.
Stop being
Everybody has their opinion. We'll appreciate it.